Hi, I'm David Weegenaar. I'm coming to you all the way from Christchurch, New Zealand. Lovely weather today, and that's the thing. So very nice day. It's the 18th of August 2017. One of my t-shirt ideas, just off the cake, off the hot press or so, is lovely weather today. By tomorrow, everyone will forget it. But well, a lot of people will, but that doesn't mean you. A lot of people do forget it. So anyway, here is the final position that occurred with Frank Marshall and that interesting Russian name that I've got as a game extra for you today, which is a really cool tale. I do really like it because Frank Marshall is really good. Frankly, Frank Marshall, just frankly. Not frankly, but Frank Marshall. Frankly, Frank Marshall is awesome. I would like to impress upon you that he plays, I'll show it to you, but he would play this. So I will get on with the chess and then I'll show you one of the variations that I like that Frank Marshall played in the French. So here is the final position of yesterday's program for today, which I videoed last night. Here it is. Okay, and so this is the final position. So black has just played Queen G3 and white was looking, Frank Marshall was looking at, oh well, he threatens Queen G2 checkmate. So if he can't go rook here because of Queen H2 check. And I just looked at the game earlier on today, so it's 3:37. I just looked at a game before, played live on chess.com between basically two grandmasters, because one was a grandmaster, not sure what country, but one was a grandmaster, very very good, nice attack, blah blah blah, and it was really good. So anyway, so here Marshall said to himself, black can checkmate on H2 and on G2. Oops, it looks pretty bad. And so, but he indirectly defends and attacks at the same time the queen on G3. So white's going to win a piece here, isn't it? Well, sort of, because there's no Queen H2 check anymore, and if Queen G2, then just Queen G2, Bishop G2, King G2, and white then would be two pieces up, okay? Apart from the pawns, I'm not counting the pawns, but notice the Queen can't go anywhere anyway, so she's forced to swap here, and the opponent resigned. Now I will show you the line that I like from Frank Marshall, which is a really good one. It's very very good for lightning chess or even match games. So we're taking the black side, okay? E4, E6, D4, D5, knight C3. Normal moves here for black are bishop B4, and I of course play the F5 move, knight F6, bishop D7, knight D7. I've seen all these moves. Bishop E7, B6 and Queen D7 and Bishop A6. I've seen those sorts of things, but Frank Marshall deviates from all of those. He plays C5, and so there are very very interesting games. If anyone wants to see them, I can find them in his book, and they are really really fantastic. The initial reaction is this: thinking white's going to think, well, I'm just going to threaten to win this pawn, you see. So what black does is plays D4. Now white, okay, so we're attacking the knight now, okay, so the knight has to do something, so it goes here. If it goes here, then black has this move, all that, and it defends the pawn on D4 with the queen on D8 and the bishop on C5. So it's quite cool. A typical line would be bishop F4 to attack knight C7, but then white would be met with probable knight a6 defending that square or similar. This move will not do to defend this square here, knight c7 with the bishop as well as the queen, because it's attacked twice with this this square on c7. See, the square is actually attacked. The square is attacked twice, and white has got 2 on c7 and black has only 1, and it happens to be the actual queen. There are moves like this, but they're no good because, well, they're all right, and it's a bit gutty. But black has to be careful for this, and this all of a sudden it's looking quite nice for white. Okay, so this is an interesting line. Now my friends got stuck with this quite a bit when I'd be playing lightning chess with them. So we're at this is in a typical position here, is that white thinks, oh, I can win a pawn. E5, E5, DC5, and this is actually quite good if you like assertive, aggressive kind of chess, and you like to play a Kasparov sort of style to your play, or a Mikhail Tal. You will love this. Even though it is the French, it's quite good, but there are traps to watch out for. So anyway, we'll go d4, and now look, if knight e4 to protect the pawn, okay, then we can just go bishop takes pawn, because note that if knight takes bishop, then black merely goes queen here, check, but white has got this move here. So it's a bit sort of, you may lose a pawn, because this way you can lose a pawn or something. You can go here, because we want to take the knight, don't we? We could just take the knight. If you sort of get a bit worried, don't worry about it. Just take, do worry about it. Just take the knight back, but you will eventually lose this pawn, even to this. Just this sort of thing. White's going to be a pawn up. But what black has also got is this. Now this is quite interesting. This is quite interesting because this is quite interesting, this line, and I could make this the program for the day, but I could make this the extra. I will just make this the extra, and I'll do the lesson soon. So this is DC3. It just sounds like a plane. Now if pawn takes, then queen takes, check, okay, and then queen takes knight. Make sure you remember to take the knight back, unless white plays something silly. If white plays something silly here, you might think about, you might think about taking the rook here. But maybe you won't, you might not. Okay, so this is quite a cool line. So what happens now is white has just met black playing DC3. Oh no, not the queen takes, but the DC3. Now what happens here? Can white just merely play their knight back here and attack the queen now? Yes, they can. They can do that. They can. Okay. So we've got this move, see? Check. With the queen to the king. Okay? So it's check now. Okay? Now, the usual response will be knight takes queen and probably be a bit annoyed. But then, not pawn takes bishop. Queen, not b1 queen, but pawn takes rook queen, not rook, because otherwise you're going to end up losing material. You're going to be down material. And so this is quite cool. Now if the king was here, white would have bishop to a3 after pawn takes rook queen, bishop a3 is check and winning the queen, or the other one, which is queen down to here, is d8. Okay, so we'll just fumble the ball. Okay, we'll show you these. This is a win of the queen, bishop check, and regardless of what black does, white takes the queen if they like next move. Or if the knight goes here, which is possible, then they can just take the knight first. And don't forget that you've got to get this queen back, and then you're winning for white. So, but that's just a fantasy line. The other line is instead of bishop a3 check, is the queen here, new variation checkmate. So it's an open game, and Frank Marshall did like open positions, I think. We all know about the Spanish. A lot of people know about the Spanish. Marshall's line in the Spanish, the pawn sacrifice, which sounds pretty much like the movie with Bobby Fischer. Now there is also a New Zealand movie on a person named Genesis from Gisborne. He ran a chess club. He had some difficulty with mental illness, but that doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with that, because even I had a time after the earthquakes and everything like that. I had an episode or two with the brain shutting down and that sort of thing. So I feel I should say that, because there's nothing wrong with mental illness. And I used to be on medication, but now I've been allowed to try it out without it, and I've now been free of it for about 3 years now. But that was all the earthquakes and other things in my life that were going on. And the other thing is that the earthquakes in Christchurch, and the other thing that was going on, because I'd be walking down the street, okay, with my friend from the press, from the Christchurch press, and I'd just be walking along, and I'd start crying, okay, because I saw all the broken streets, all the footpaths were damaged and everything, and this is my city, and I still cry about it, because I love this city, Christchurch. I love Christchurch, and my home, one of my homes is the Cathedral Square, where people died in the earthquake. So I was quite down and depressed about it, and also I found out that the body needs two things. The brain needs two things, the body needs other things, it needs the other things too, body. But the brain needs sleep and food, and if it's deprived of any of those two, it's not very good. So there you go. That's a wee glimpse into some of my history, and I have no shame whatsoever. I was quite surprised that I was even ill, and people would come up to me and say, "Are you okay, sir?" I'd be at the Pack and Save, and people would come up to me and say, "Are you okay, sir? Are you okay?" And they'd never done that before. So that's what happened. So anyway, this is quite an interesting line. So white would be met if knight b3. If white tries to save their knight, even here, then the response is the same. And now we have the opportunity of not taking the bishop, because then the white king would take the bishop, and then after pawn takes rook or ba1 queen, white would remain material up. So here, after this position here, black should not play queen d2 because of king d2. So they play pawn takes rook, queen, not rook. You can make it a rook, but it's a bit silly. And this is now white can choose between which queen they take. And so that the peace situation is equal, except for black has a pawn up now. So that's pretty cool. So it's 4 versus 5. White has 4 pawns, black has 5. 2 on the queen side, 1 on the queen side for white, and equal on the other side. And one of my principles that I've spoken to you about is the principle of the hovercraft manoeuvre. Now, if you don't know what the KIWI Hovercraft manoeuvre is, you may check it out. Sorry, pardon the pun. You may check it out, and if black is met by no queen being taken, then black can look to take this, and then it's pretty cool. So if white's silly, then this is quite cool for black. I'm sure you agree. So here we have it. There you have a glimpse into my private life, is that I have never ever been against people that have got disabilities of the mind and that's the thing, but I haven't been having to need medication for quite some time now, but if I become unwell again, I will do something about it. But the thing is that even my son has special needs, my son is, so I'm not a stranger to it. Okay, so we will go now and look. I think I'll end it here. So we just want to recap here for you. I'll end this part of the session here. And now usually white will play bishop d2 or queen d2. Is it cancel, or queen d2? Because if black takes this, it's foolish because they'll piece down. So in this case, black would play queen c5. The other one, we could have a look at what the PC says about this for the Fritz 11. c3 comes to reply. Yes, c3, queen c5, queen d4, new variation, and now it gives queen d4, cd4, knight f6. So white's a pawn up here, and the position is in favour of white by 1.11. So maybe that's a refutation. I can remember playing this when I was a schoolboy against the better player than I, from the Otago Chess Club, 1 year older than I, better at school, pupil champs and all that sort of thing. And I played it against him, and he found it very, very difficult to play against. But that's probably white's best line. Okay, so I'm going to end this session on here, and then I'm going to I'm going to call this a bonus session, and I'm starting to do bonus sessions reasonably regularly. Plus, as you have heard, and I've enlightened to, I love these arrows. Look, black's going knight here and knight here, you know, and bishop here and all this sort of stuff. And look, there's bishop, look, this bishop wants to go here, check, and that one's lit up for some reason because it could go here. And look, the lights, look at the light up. And so they say it's actually white's move. The computer suggests knight f3. So anyway, that's a bit of an insight into me and my private life, and other factors were prevalent at the time, having to do things with regard to the earthquake and clean up and all that sort of stuff, and seeing road cones everywhere you drive in Christchurch. There are road cones everywhere. I kid you not. I'm not even kidding. It's just like you just wear they're part of the furniture. And we got Yeah, mate. Yeah, I'm from Australia, mate. We've got Australian road cones, okay? Yeah, mate, I'm from Australia. Where are you from? Yeah, I'm from New Zealand, mate. I'm Kiwi. You know, what are you doing in our country? I mean, they're tourists, aren't they? A tourist, you can always tell a tourist in another country, but you can't tell them when they're in their own country because they just look like a local. Whereas when they're a tourist in your country, you can always tell them apart from the normal locals. There are a few factors why that's possible, but you can always see a tourist. They might just be carrying a map around, okay, and going, where the heck am I? You know, they might have a road map from New Zealand, they might have a Kiwi t-shirt on, or they might have a pelican or a penguin, I don't know, t-shirt, or they might have those. Yeah, Dave, they might have it! I know, you guys, are you being quite quiet now? So I'm just showing these people out there the Frank Marshall manoeuvre in the French defence. It's quite cool. It's a nice one to spring on people, especially if they're all booked up. This is a really cool line. Move 3 c5 against knight c3, and you can play that. It gets to like a terrace kind of an opening. Is that right, Dave? Oh no, you better go and finish this program before everyone complains. I know. And you talk quite long, don't you? You talk... No, we don't! Yes, you do. You talk a long time. You really stretch your words out, you kids. Okay, anyway, we're going to end the session, and then I'm going to show you a really cool game. So the manoeuvre I'm talking about is the hovercraft, the KIWI Hovercraft manoeuvre, okay? And that's basically keep your king in the corner when there's a rook pawn coming. Bye.